Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to this week's Midweek 180. I'm at home again, hurrah! I won't be at home next week, but that's another matter. We'll worry about that next week. But if you've not seen one of these before, this is my midweek update where I bring you my news, views, and information about upcoming reviews, all filmed in one take. Now, I normally put 180 seconds on the screen somewhere. I'm not going to do that this week. It's another special. I've got something to talk about that wouldn't justify a video on its own, but also I didn't want to limit to 180 seconds, but the timer will be returning next week. I'm also joined by the Petrol Pup. You wanted to be involved, didn't you? You've been helping. She's been helping with editing all day. The Petrol Pooch, by the way, is just down there in her bed, unless anyone's worrying. She's fine. But yes, you're going to help today, aren't you? Or you're just going to lie there and look cute, probably. So let's get the admin out the way, and then we'll get into the meat of it. So, leader of the pack last week was Ben Higginson. Well done, mate. Joined in the Magnificent Seven by Rod Matheson, Francois G, Malcolm Brew, Paul Mead, Leanne Jackson, and Kevin D. So whoever puts the first comment this week, you'll be my leader of the pack next week, and the first 7 comments will be in my Magnificent Seven. Now, where are you and what you're doing? I want to give a massive shout out to Paul Murphy, who comments on almost every video. And last week he put a comment and he's basically awaiting surgery. And as he said, life after stage 4 prostate cancer keeps throwing challenges at him. So I just wanted all of us to send all of our positive energy to you, Paul, and wish you all the best for your surgery, mate. You are a constant support on the channel. Thank you very much. And also, you hit the thanks button last week and donated some money to me, which is very, very lovely. There was no need to do that, but thank you very, very much. Wherever you are right now and whatever you're doing, put it in the comments below and I'll give you a shout out next week. And that sounds like the tumble dryer's finished, but stop beeping now, thankfully. Last week's question was whether or not you chose or went for the highest spec you could, or whether you'd go for poverty spec but a new car. And most of you are like me. You try and get the highest spec you can. I would even buy a car that's maybe a 12 or 18 months old and get a top spec than buying a new car with a spec that's slightly less. Similar question then this week. Are there any spec items when you're looking to buy a car that are an absolute must? And if they're not there, it's a deal breaker. For me, it's quite simple. I've actually got 4 things that I would look at. I always want the upgraded stereo if possible. If it's the car that would have one, I want a panoramic roof. If it doesn't have a pan roof, generally I wouldn't be interested. I've always want the upgraded or sport looking seats. I wouldn't want Bogo poverty seats. And then also, again, as long as it's the right type of car, roof rail. So when I bought the Clubman, for example, I had all of those things. And if it doesn't, basically, it doesn't matter how low mileage it is, what good a deal it is, I literally wouldn't go and look at it. Now then, F1 news. Red Bull, by the way, the comment last week about Max Verstappen getting his first championship, that was called sarcasm. A few of you didn't get that. Yes. But Red Bull have been found guilty of an overspend. So there's a budget cap in F1. There were 2 teams that were pulled up against the committee, if you like. I think Williams had a procedural breach, but Red Bull were found to have a material breach. They went overspend by under 5%, which doesn't sound too bad, but that still amounts to over $7 million. And that's a lot of upgrades on a car. And that's not just last year's car. That would feed through into this year. And it's really interesting to see what the penalty will be for that breach. Is it going to be a fine? My personal opinion is it should be a team thing in terms of a point deduction of some kind. And bearing in mind how last year's season finished, there's big debates, big questions for me as to whether or not that was, did that overspend affect the result of last year's championship? And if it did, then that's not good. And personally, I think some kind of points fine, team and driver potentially. You might say it's not the driver's fault. Well, they're part of the team. And I actually think there's more to be read on that story. Now, the thing I want to talk about that was a little bit more of a subject than I would normally do in a midweek 180 is my Masters Test. So last week I said that I was doing my Masters Test on Thursday last week. Have you finished? Excellent. And I did, and I'm happy to report that I passed. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the test. I've done a video. If you've not seen the video about my preparation for the Masters, I'll put a card above now. But the test was an hour and a half test on roads I didn't know with one of the IAM Roadsmart's senior testers. There's only a handful of testers that can test to Masters standard, and Sean is one of those. Ex-police, lovely guy, so much experience driving to the system of the IAM, but also driving within the police. It was a real privilege to be in a car with him and kind of learn from him as well as being tested by him. And the criteria, so there are 27 different criteria that you are marked on during your test. And for each of those criteria, you can get one of 3 marks. You can get a 1, and that's if you drive to to Masters standard. If you drive to advanced driver standard, you would get a 2. And if that particular criteria needed work, you would get a 3. They add all of those up, and basically, hello, I'm filming here. Yeah, I know. So they add all of those up, and if you want to get a distinction, which is what I did, you needed to get 30 or less. Now, that means you can only get 3 of those criteria that aren't driven to master standard. It's very high standard. And a perfect drive would be 27, and I got 28. So there was only one of those criteria. I'll put my mark sheet up now so you can have a look while I'm talking about, so you can see what the criteria are. The one I didn't get a 1 for was smoothness, and I'm a little bit annoyed, but I totally understand. I'm a very smooth driver. However, the really interesting thing doing the test in the Boxster is the Boxster's such a finely balanced car. Any input to the brakes and the throttle instantly can be felt through your bum. Through the car. It's just such a fine car, and we work really hard on smooth application of brakes, so you can't feel the brakes being applied, and then smooth application of throttle, because when you pick up the throttle, you can feel it. And the little thing I was doing in corners, on a couple of corners, on a couple of occasions, I picked up the throttle and then let the throttle off because I maybe picked up the throttle too early, and then put it back on again, and that just unsettled the car just a fraction. So I need to go and work on my smoothness, but I'm over the moon to have got a distinction right from the get-go. I wanted to say a massive thank you to my mentor, Mark. I know you'll be watching this, Mark. Your patience and time and experience and knowledge were invaluable to me, and I couldn't have done it without you. We worked really hard right from the get-go. He said, I'm only going to put you into the test when you're at distinction level. You're going to get a distinction, and the pressure was on then, and I'm delighted to have got a distinction and be able to say to Mark, we did it, mate. And that's really cool. We will be doing some more videos together. So Sean and I talked during my test, or just after my test, in that I think I'm going to do some videos on not everything, but there's a couple of things. And for me, one of the really challenging skills with advanced driving is overtaking. And it's a skill that we all do, but I think it's a skill that most people do badly. And that's from the preparation, the kind of making sure it's a safe overtake, the execution of the maneuver, everything. So we're going to do a video on the correct way to approach an overtake. And then there's other things as well, observation. And so we're going to pick up some of the key skills and maybe do some short videos on those, because I think that would be interesting, and some of you have asked for that. But it won't be my last thing with IAM Roadsmart. I'm now proud to be on the Masters Register. There's less than 1,000 people in the UK on the Masters Register, and I'm one of them, and I'm very proud of that. So that was the bit that was going to take a bit more than 180 seconds. This Friday's film I'm editing today, and it's a pretty special one. So I got very late notice last week that on Friday of last week I flew to Sicily with Maserati, and I drove the new MC20 Cielo, which is the MC20 Spider. And I won't give too much away, but the roads we were on, the car I was in, it's just a stunning car, and I've tried really hard to make a very special video, and that will be coming on Friday at 6. And then Monday, stay tuned on Monday, because there's an announcement coming out. It's been a long time since I did a meet and greet. My first meet and greet was probably now 4 or 5 years ago at Goodwood. I expected 20 people, about 80 people turned up. I said everyone who came would get a free coffee, and it cost me like 120 quid in coffee. And it was still an amazing, I look back on that day, it was amazing. I tried to organise a couple of other occasions, and I've had to cancel both of them. One was within kind of COVID times, and another one, it just ended up being too big. So there will be a meet and greet coming, and it's at a venue that is easily big enough to deal with everything, and I'm doing it with my very good friends at Hendy Performance, and it's going to be very special. So I'll give you all the information you need about that on Monday, so please tune in for that. And we're going to have a little bit of a twist. I really wanted to do one this year because it's my 50th birthday this year, and I thought it'd be really fun to have kind of like the second oldest YouTuber after Harry Metcalf. I thought it'd be fun to have a bit of a twist on that and have a birthday meet and greet. So that's Monday. But for now, I'm going to love you and leave you. You finished now, have you? Bored now? But I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about any elements of the Masters driving that you'd like me to do videos on. Please let me know. Otherwise, make sure you tune in on Friday because it's a good one. But for now, if you enjoyed that, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film, which is this Friday at 6 o'clock for the Maserati MC20 Cielo. Beautiful car. I can't actually say Maserati MC20 Cielo without going into a very bad Italian accent. I think that's kind of just the Italianness has rubbed off on me somewhat. But I'll see you on that film, guys. You take care. Drive safe.